I'm gon' ride, we gon' ride, who gon' slide, we gon' slide, they my guys, they my slimes.
Clip up the rewind out.
I'm gon' ride, we gon' ride, who gon' slide, we gon' slide, they my guys, they my slimes.
All out when we ride out.
The next topic we're going to discuss on Boxing Bros is, did Yordenis Ugas become a superstar after beating Manny Pacman Pacquiao? And we're going to turn this over to the only man on the panel who predicted this fight right, Kaspera G.
All right. I'm by the window. I'm deciding should I jump or not.
Oh gosh.
I'm gonna say no. The reason why is because, in my eyes, you a star, bro. You are, but you don't speak English. And I know it sounds crazy. It sounds like I'm talking like Dillian White or Tyson Fury, but you don't speak English and you're not Mexican. Like, he's a Cuban fighter, but there's not a lot of like Cuban Americans like that really are pushing the sport, And so, like, although he beat Manny Pacquiao, and Pacquiao is the man in the Philippines. In the Philippines, they do speak Spanish. The way he won, I don't know that translates to, Ugas is the next man up. Like, he's that dude right now, And in the back of my, I have to be objective. Yeah, he beat Pacquiao, but he didn't beat the Pacquiao that we know. It's like he beat a shadow of Manny Pacquiao, And so, and I think that's going to always play in the back of a lot of people's minds, and even think about what Trill was saying. Like, he took the fight short notice. This ain't the Pacquiao we know, so maybe if he runs it back, if Pacquiao's down to do it, and they run it back, and then Ugas's next go around, he beats him more decisively, maybe I think he could inherit the superstar status. But, yeah, man. I was joking when I was saying, sacrifice the goat to become the GOAT. He sacrificed the GOAT, but he might have to sacrifice some more goats to be the GOAT. You know what I mean? So it just, man, he ain't a superstar yet, man. It just sucks because he's Cuban. If he was Mexican, I would say yes. He's not Mexican. He's not Puerto Rican. So, and he's not American either. He doesn't speak English. So he's just in that tight spot that's like unfortunate. Like if Cuba, like I guess was like more, if like there wasn't embargoes on Cuba and there was more like boxing coming in and out of Cuba as opposed to just the Cuban amateurs in the Olympics. If there was like more connections with the boxing world with Cuba, I think, he'll be a superstar. But because of, not speaking English, not being Mexican, not being Puerto Rican, not being African American, it's going to be tough for Ugas to be that superstar who just beat an older Manny Pacquiao.
Dollar Bill.
I agree. That did this make no, not at all. I agree with you on that part, G. No, it didn't make him a superstar because even me making the excuses that people was going to say they're excuses, but I says no, they're not excuses, guys. Those I'm giving Manny the benefit of the doubt. That's what I'm giving Manny. It's how he went. He didn't go out there and Marquez him. He didn't go out there and dominate him. It has no where Ugas is from. I don't think that kid matters where he's from. I think is how he fought and who he fought and how Manny is perceived also, because we got people who from Panama, the great Roberto Duran. That's not known for boxing or nothing, but he transcended and made it so like he was the man, So I don't really believe it's, so much of him being a Cuban fighter. I just think it was how he fought a Manny Pacquiao. And if he would have did better, if he would have went out there and sparked Manny, then he would have became is how he performed in that fight. And he didn't perform well enough like that to go ahead, my brother.
Quick question. If Ugas was Mexican with the same performance,
no,
no,
because it's been like you gotta understand. It's how you beat a legend. You know what I'm saying? It's how you beat a legend. Like, man, just because, you know, there's a lot of Mexican fighters who back Manny Pacquiao over other Mexican fighters when they fought, especially with something with their history and dialect is so similar. Like the love that Manny Pacquiao has a huge Mexican fan base. You know what I'm saying? So you will have to earn it against a Manny Pacquiao, and you would have to like with Marquez. You know, he earned it. You know what I'm saying? With knocking out Manny, and I think Ugas would have needed to put on a performance like that. I don't believe it's where you're from, it's where you're at. You know, and that's why I wanted to salute the great Roberto Duran. But did this make him a superstar? No. It's because I think with all the benefits of the doubts that I was giving Manny Pacquiao and the performance that Ugas put in, I don't think this was a superstar making performance. I just think that he beat a faded Manny or a Manny who overlooked him. That's basically what it was, by a couple of points. Just like we were all in agreement in the scorecards. Like we all had it 115, 113, even though, you know, the judges during the fight had it something else. But we're all in agreement. It was a close, tough fight.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to get into the side discussion for a second because I see both points in terms of if he was Mexican and being from Cuba and Panama. Roberto Duran had an excellent, exciting style. Roberto Duran excited the crowd. If you have a crowd-pleasing style, then you can become a pay-per-view star, much like Manny Pacquiao in the Philippines, although he has a country behind him. My point is, like, if you have a crowd-pleasing style, but if you're going to be a boxer, it's more difficult to sell pay-per-views. Like, you have to look at the type of slick boxers that were actually pay-per-view stars, and Floyd Mayweather is like the top of that list and maybe the only one on that list in terms of a guy who was just strictly boxing. When you purchased the pay-per-view, you knew it was a low probability of seeing a knockout, but it was because Mayweather would neutralize some of the greatest offensive weapons in the sport of boxing. And you were like, there's no way. Well, not you, because I believe there was a way. I always pick Floyd. But some people would view it like, there's no way he doesn't touch Floyd. And then he wouldn't touch Floyd. And then they get another fighter. And there's no way he doesn't touch Floyd. And then he never touched Floyd, right? So it was like everyone kept like, this is the time when Floyd's going to get beat. And it just never happened. So that was what sold Floyd. But I think when you look at Cuba, the Cuban style is one in the sport of boxing that people don't really like. They don't really like the Cuban style of boxing because it's not exciting. And so I can't recall, and if you can, let me know, a pay-per-view star that's ever come from Cuba in the sport of boxing that was a huge pay-per-view attraction. In the history of the sport, I can't think of one. So I do think there's something to it, but I don't think it's because he's from Cuba per se. I think it's the style. Now, if you had a Cuban who fought Mexican style and who was knocking everyone out, I think that person will become a pay-per-view star. You look at Luis Ortiz. If Luis Ortiz actually knocked out good opponents the way he knocks out the bad opponents, he probably could be a pay-per-view star. But you know, he's knocking out dudes like that Flores dude with like phantom punches and stuff that I don't know. I do see. So, but it's definitely a good discussion, and I see both points because I don't think it's where you're from necessarily. I think it's your style. Is it crowd pleasing? And because we've seen people who come from smaller countries and people who come from countries that aren't known from boxing and may not have a huge boxing following become stars because their style is crowd pleasing. But I think when it comes to Cuba, the reason why they're not pay-per-view stars is because the Cuban boxing style isn't entertaining and people don't want to pay to watch it. But getting to did Yordenis Ugas become pay-per-view star? No. I mean, did he become a superstar? No. Based on all the things I just said, his style isn't one that's everyone's gonna want to pay for. He's been in boxing for the longest time, and people can't tell you his biggest wins. His biggest win now is Manny Pacquiao. And like I was telling G, the worst part about Manny Pacquiao losing to me was that it wasn't to pass the torch. It wasn't to knight one of these guys who could become a superstar, like Earl Spence or Terrence Crawford. If he would have lost to one of those two guys, then they would have became instant superstars because their styles capture the imagination of the public. Their styles get the public excited. If Earl Spence was the one who would have beaten Manny Pacquiao, he would have instantly become a superstar based on his body of work at 147, based on the fact that he's unified champion at 147. If Terrence Crawford would have beaten Manny Pacquiao, he would have instantly become a superstar based on his boxing skill, with him being undisputed at 140, and the fact that he would have solidified himself at 147 by beating a legend, because everyone wants to see him in there with a credible opponent. It's like no one questions TC's skills. We just want to see his skills translate to a win against a top-tier opponent for the coronation. As soon as he does that, everyone's ready to hand him the crown. It's like right now, everyone got the crown in the hand, and they're like, we think you got the goods, but we're not sure yet. As soon as he beats one of the top guys, everyone's bringing the crown and dropping it on his head. But that's all we want. All we want is for the skills to translate to what we think that they could be. And if he would have beaten Manny Pacquiao, and like Trill pointed this out, depending on how he would have beaten Manny Pacquiao, because if TC would have fought Manny Pacquiao in a 115, 113, that probably would have hurt his stock. But if he would have did Manny Pacquiao the way he did Cal Velasquez, the way he did Kell Brook, the way he did these other guys, he would have been an instant star. And Earl Spence, if he would have beat him in convincing fashion, he would have been an instant star. If Earl beats Manny Pacquiao in a 115, 113, probably hurts his stock. So because this is Ugas, and he was already not really known like that, and very little people knew about him, this actually elevates him because, one, you're being seen in the ring with Manny Pacquiao, and two, you beat him. But make no mistake about it, if Earl had the same performance in the ring with Manny Pacquiao that Ugas had, we would be like, yo, we're not satisfied with what Earl did. If Terrence Crawford has the same performance that Ugas had in the ring against Manny Pacquiao, we would be like, the best pound for pound, the number one pound for pound, went life and death with the 42-year-old Pacquiao off a 2-year layoff. That's what we would be saying. The only reason we're gassing this up right now is because it's Yordenis Ugas, and he was relatively unknown coming into this fight. So for that reason, no, it doesn't make him a superstar.
Exactly. It didn't make Jeff Horn a superstar neither. How you feel in the comment section. Please like and subscribe, and check us out on Instagram and Twitter. And also, check out our podcast on all major streaming services. You know who we are. We the Boxing Bros, and we get busy.
You're welcome.